Welcome to CrystalMaker 10. In this tutorial we're going to have a look at ways in which you can save your preferences. You can access your preferences using the Preferences menu command, which on the Mac version is available on the CrystalMaker menu and on the Windows version is available on the Edit menu. This brings up the Preferences panel, which is divided into a series of separate panes which can be accessed via the buttons in the Windows toolbar. From left to right, we have controls for general settings, for example, whether or not to show the library browser at startup, whether or not to generate bonds when importing text files, and the size of the undo buffer. Next up are commands for controlling the general workspace. For example, whether or not to auto-center document windows, which inspector panes to show, whether or not to show the ruler or the grid, the tool strip and the legend. You can customize your graphics preferences in terms of the type of graphics to be used. CrystalMaker supports one of two OpenGL display modes. We have a fast rotation mode, and you can specify the output resolution to be used when copying graphics to the clipboard. The Elements preferences allows you to customize the size and color of atoms by chemical element. And you can edit the table here in periodic element view. You can simply click on a sphere and change its radius and color. You can browse a series of default tables. The display table will become your default, and you can use the arrow buttons to quickly speed through these. We also provide a list view that makes it easier to search and to change colors and radii in the table. Now there's an Actions button down at the bottom of this list view, which allows you to load the presets and also to import and export data to text files. This is useful if you're installing CrystalMaker on another machine and you want to be able to transfer your element preferences. The Model Preferences pane provides a series of tabs allowing you to control how spheres, ellipsoids, bonds and polyhedra are displayed. Model Extras allows you to customize everything else associated with your model, the unit cell, the axes, surface, lattice planes, also volumetric data. Rendering allows you to set the ways in which a given molecule is depicted on the screen. For example, the background settings, the reflectance, the lighting, the depth fading, and your 3D settings, including perspective. Now these settings can also be controlled for a given structure in the inspector, and we'll come on to ways in which you can set those settings as preferences in a moment. Finally, we come to the Simulation tab, and this also includes settings for the simulated infrared spectra for molecules. Now what happens if you have an existing structure and you want to reset some of the settings to the defaults? For example, here we have a model plotted on a white background, and maybe we want to reset that background to the current defaults. Well, the answer is to go to the inspector, and let's open up the rendering inspector here. And if we go to a particular group, let's have a look at the background group. If we right click in this group, we'll see that there are controls to save the current settings as defaults and to reset to defaults. So let's just reset, and now we have a gradient going from dark blue through to black. Maybe we want to change that to something else. Let's have a lighter colored gradient here, and maybe we want to save that as our defaults. We could go back to the Preferences panel and set the settings there, but it would be nice to be able to adjust them here. Well, again, if you right click, you can use the Save as Defaults command to save the current set of values in this control group as your default values. Similarly, setting reflectance settings can be quite tricky. If we click on, say, the atoms popover and we adjust the reflectance settings, we get a real-time update on the screen. And if we want to save these numbers as the defaults, we can do that by right-clicking in the reflectance pane and doing Save as Defaults. The Model Inspector also allows you to control your defaults by right-clicking in a control group. So here we have the settings for the unit cell. We can save the current settings as our defaults. We can reset to whatever the default values currently are, or we can do a factory reset. Both the Model Inspector and the Rendering Inspector also allow you to control settings for everything in one go. You can do this by right-clicking on the tab itself, and we have options here to save as defaults or reset to defaults. Or you can click at the bottom of the inspector below any of these control groups, and you'll get the same pop-up menu. This will allow you to save all of your rendering defaults in one go or reset them at the same time. So just to summarize again, CrystalMaker has a powerful set of preferences that you can access using the Preferences command and edit within the Preferences panel. Some of those preferences can also be set using the inspector.